Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors. George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Okay, it is Friday. We are back. We are joined. We've got a celebrity doctor in the house this evening, and we'll start with Dr. Delegate Reed Novotny. How are you doing, Delegate? Hails from Howard County, the only county that is touched by many, many other counties in Maryland, more than any other. You guys, I believe it's more counties than other counties.
We're in the middle of most things in
you border our county, Prince George's, Carroll, Anne Arundel,
Baltimore.
5 counties. I think I said Carroll. Anyways, but so he is from basically the heart of Maryland. Delegate Novotny, welcome.
Thank you, Dwight, and thank you to everyone else. Looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Yeah, and then we have Dr. Jason Trott from the best part of Anne Arundel County, the county that has the longest shoreline in the great state of Maryland. More people have backyards to water and boat slips than anywhere else in the state of Maryland. Welcome, Jason.
And the county that used to contain all of Howard County within Anne Arundel County. 1800s.
Oh, really? Interesting. And then we have another Howard County native, Dr. Actually, he's not a native. He's a native of Montgomery County, but now he lives in Howard County. Dr. Jeff Thornton, security expert and master of all trades, jack of none.
Thank you. It's good to be on.
And then we have media pundit, media guru, dean of politics in Washington, Dr. Don Irvine, chairman of Exon Academia. Basically keep an eye on professors and teachers around the country, making sure they stay on the straight and narrow. Welcome, Don.
Thanks, Dwight.
Yeah, we've had a busy week this week. A bunch of things, Maryland's legislative session ended last week. Was it last week or the week before? It just feels like you guys have been there a lot longer than that. Than 90. And then we have this past week we had Joe, his fraudulency, give his address to the joint session of Congress. And I don't know if you guys watched, but did you guys kind of get like a throwback to the Cat in the Hat Thing 1 and Thing 2, or The Simpsons with Thelma and Louise, Patty and Selma's Volkswagen's the license plates are Thing 1 and Thing 2. Thing 1 and Thing 2 just came up when I saw Camilla and Nancy with the masks on standing behind Joe Biden. Now, is it me or did you guys think it was kind of ridiculous that pretty much everyone there was vaccinated? They were yet wearing masks. What were they afraid of?
Yeah, you're right, Dwight. I mean, that was one of the things I think a lot of people notice is just that you've got the president, and he had just actually, announced really, right, about new mask measures and where you don't have to wear them outside and a lot of other things, and then we see this, and it just is, I don't know, it just creates this funny juxtaposition of how things are going in there. I mean, obviously too, he was also speaking to a very empty chamber as well because of COVID-19 precautions, and which also may have been overstated in the fact that it was, they didn't really have a lot of people in there to listen to him to begin with. But I think one thing we knew that wasn't going to happen was that Nancy Pelosi wasn't going to be standing up and ripping up any speeches, right?
Mm-hmm. The other thing, I think Nancy may have not seen my friend, the plastic surgeon in Burbank. That could be the other reason why she kept the mask on. Bad Botox experience. I don't know. No.
Yeah. Masks for some people an improvement, right?
Yes, there are.
They had something like 200 out of the 11 or 1,300 people who could sit in that chamber. But yeah, they were definitely spread out and masked and vaccinated. So I'm sure most of the people in there wore double masks. It was reminiscent of what we were doing in Annapolis too. A lot of the members down there, even after vaccinations, were wearing triple mask and a shield. But then, as soon as the legislative session would be done, and they'd walk into the hallway, they'd strip all that stuff off. So, pandering to the cameras is definitely part of this at this point. I don't think anyone cares. I don't think anyone would debate that there's some safety we should go through, but it is the amount of pandering we have at this point that is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
when,
that was all for. I think that was all for TV. I mean, I think you saw briefly at the beginning, Joe Manchin got caught not wearing his mask in the chamber. I thought that one was interesting, and I also I think Ted Cruz needed a sleep mask, probably like the rest of the country. 'Cause that's how I was during the speech.
yeah, well, Jason, I mean, with Ted Cruz, I mean, that was basically how a lot of people felt, right? I mean, Joe Biden is not a dynamic speaker, at all. So that was bound to happen to a lot of people, in terms of that. And Cruz got caught on that. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of America felt the same way, and it attracted pretty low ratings on top of that to boot.
The lowest, I believe, in history.
11.8 million or something like that. But yeah, you're exactly right. I don't go sleeping through it because not many people were watching it. So that's the problem. So they were sleeping or watching something else. American Idol, maybe. I don't know.
Or they're watching the Jeffersons reruns on MeTV, Antenna TV, I should say.
There you go.
But in the speech itself, I mean, it's just, Biden has now solidified this whole, case of big government is back. I mean, spending is going to be out of control. Not that the Republicans under Trump did a very good job of controlling spending or seem to care about it very much. But boy, now everything is out. And, the amount of spending that Biden wants to put through, and this really for leftward lurch that he's had. I mean, this is going to surprise a lot of people in terms of how far left he's going. If you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming out during the week and saying that not as conservative as I thought he would be, and they're basically giving him, a thumbs up in terms of he's done a heck of a lot better for the progressive left than we expected.
Yeah.
This, I think, is a signal for where we're going. If you thought that Obama, you were one that thought back in 2008 Obama was going to take the country far left. This is, that was nothing. We're going full tilt. He is going to spend as much time, and I think Congress knows that they may have limited time and control, the Democrats, that they're going to try to push through as much as they can, on this, because by 2022, there's a good chance that they will not be controlling those chambers.
Yeah, and as our friend David Bossie, Jason, you were hosting that show with our friend David Bossie, says they got to do everything. They got to basically ramp this up. They got 2 years to do everything they want, because they're definitely not going to keep the House in 2 years. Good chance they lose the Senate. So they got, and they got to stop doing some of this silliness. So for some of their quote moderate members can run back to the center when they're up for re-election. So they've got a finite time. They need to push all their craziness in by November of this year. Otherwise, they're going to be, because next year there is not a red district where Trump won and a Democrat won. Democrat that wants to be seen as being Joe Biden's patsy, frankly.
Yeah, and we already had the congresswoman from Illinois announce today, Bustos, that she's going to retire. Her district, Trump won it 2 times. She's been in a dogfight there the last 2 races, and she may be seeing some of the handwriting on the wall in that sense, Dwight. That this is going to be hard, and I think you're right. I mean, really, in essence, that if they really don't get some things passed by the fall, it's going to be a lot tougher going past that point, because for Congress, they, on a short cycle, when you've only got 2 years in office, you're going to spend a good amount of time, maybe up to a year or more, in fundraising and campaigning for re-election. At that point, Do you want to get caught and then be labeled in terms of all this far left agenda and all this crazy spending that they're going to go forward with? Look, I mean, James Carville has come out and said, the Democrats, they've got to get away from the defund the police, and they've got to get away from all this woke stuff, right? A lot of Democrats, they think this is great stuff, but it's going to backfire on them big time.
See, James Carville remembers 1994. Remember, 92 to 94, the Democrats were on steroids. They had all these crazy ideas, and basically they were all caught off guard with the contract with America and Newt Gingrich and the Gingrich Revolution, which basically sent the Democrats. And that was a real seat change in Washington. I mean, not like when they took back the House in 2018, where I think it was they only had like an 18-seat majority opposed to Newt had, I think, flipped over. I think we flipped over 30 seats in 94 to take the majority. We had a real mandate. They've never had a mandate. Frankly, even Joe Biden's election, if you look at the numbers, he had no real mandate. American people don't want any of this silliness that he's touting, quite frankly. The only people that want it are his Manhattan liberal friends and Hollywood elitists. Basically, it's the big city Democrats that support his radical agenda. I don't know if you guys saw any bit of him in Georgia yesterday, where he lost his mask. That was funny. But you had these hecklers there that were saying, defund ICE, and he said, "Oh, give me 5 days." So that's coming. He wants to abolish ICE, and heaven help us all if that happens.
So Dwight, unfortunately, where I fight and where I get to go toe to toe with the far left, it's those people at the legislative level, at the Maryland state level, echo the national level politics too. They're trying to go as woke as they can, as left as they can.
Most of them from Montgomery County too, aren't they?
Oh yeah, a lot come from Montgomery County. Some are in Howard County. Some are elsewhere in the state. But they're everything. I would probably say this 3 times on the show. But everything we talk about in national level politics, people think that it plays in Maryland, but oftentimes it doesn't. I mean, in Howard County, we had a delegate who tried to abolish the school resource officers and thought that would fly, and it doesn't. Even our state's attorney, who is a Democrat, said that the school to prison pipeline does not exist in our community. And I caught a lot of flack for quoting a Democrat, a far left Democrat, on that point. But like the larger point is those national level tones that people are talking about don't actually play at the local level. And I God willing, 2022 at the state level and county level will be great for Republicans.
I hope so. I think it should be. 2022 should be a good year for us, even here in Maryland, because I know in my county, the people of Montgomery County, they don't see themselves as citizens of Maryland. They see themselves as citizens of the world. They'd rather summer in Perry and London than Ocean City or Deep Creek. They're citizens of the world. They're very worldly people. They go to the Georgetown cocktail parties and summer in the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyards. I think Hamptons might be too pedestrian for some of the Montgomery County liberals. They probably go to Martha's Vineyards or what's that other place? The liberals like to play out there, Nantucket.
Yeah, my wife's actually on her way to Ocean City right now, and I'm here with you all. But
great.
I'm with Ocean City.
Maryland's playground, Ocean City.
Right.
Well, I mean, Dwight, to that point, in a sense, though, I mean, and to the entire panel here, I mean, how much do you think that the policies per se, in terms of what we've dealt with here for the last year or so with shutdown economics and how they've run how the various counties have run things here in the state, very different across the board in terms of where you are, in terms of how things are being handled. How much of that do you think will have an effect on local elections, though? We know that we can see what happens here in Montgomery County with Mark Elrich and everything like that, and he's always trailing the state in terms of what's going on there, and they're taking this supposedly, they want to call it a cautious approach. And I would hope that, voters left and right, find that this, has been doing nothing but hurting businesses, killing the economy, killing the tax base, and will rise up. But I just don't, when you're in a county that's so lopsided like Montgomery County, I don't know if there's just enough interest to actually get a Republican around here.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. Montgomery County, we will elect a Republican one day, but not in 2022. But here's the important thing. Just like when General Eisenhower was planning his grand invasion of Europe, D-Day, Normandy, you needed the French resistance to keep the Nazis off guard. Now, I'm not saying Montgomery County Democrats are Nazis, but I'm just saying it, but it's just an example, you morons at the various bloggers in Monkey County. Anyways, but as I'm saying, just like the French resistance had to run interference with the Nazis to keep them off balance, so D-Day would be a success, Montgomery County needs to fill every slot with a Republican candidate because we need to fight the Democrats everywhere in the state of Maryland, not just Deep Creek Lake or the sands of Ocean City. We need to fight them in the streets of Rockville, Bethesda, Silver Spring, Kensington, Germantown, absolutely. We need to fight them everywhere. We can't cede ground to them. I know there's thought among some Montgomery County Republicans that we should only have one or two candidates. I'm like, yeah, good job. They're all going to basically pile on and take out people like Delegate Novotny, who's basically going to win. He's going to have an uphill fight. We'll talk a little bit later about how you can support Delegate Novotny and his efforts running for delegate. You're up for re-election next year in 2 years, 2022.
Of course, yeah. I think 2022 should be beneficial for all of us, but there's already declared candidates at the delegate and senatorial level in my area, even though we haven't redrawn the districts. But I tell you what, every time one of your Montgomery County delegates goes far woke left, it's an opportunity for us to rebut. Did anyone see the delegate from Montgomery County's post about Senator Tim Scott's rebuttal?
Which one was it? Eric Lukey?
No. Acevero?
Oh, jeez. It's always one of them. It's somebody from our county. It could be anybody.
So, I will just say, I will say this 3 times. I am quoting a Democrat from Montgomery County when I say this, but his quote out at the top, he said, Senator Tim Scott, a U.S. senator, was cooning. And I had to figure out what that term was. I had to Google what that term was, but it is one of the most offensive terms a person can use against a person of color. And that is one of your state delegates from Montgomery County talking about another senator who happens to be African American. It was one of the worst repulsive things. And I will just tell you, within less than 24 hours, the caucus down in Annapolis that represents all the Republicans on the House side released a statement condoning it. And that kind of stuff, it's so divisive. I just hope, while we're talking about, I just hope that people read it and say, that's not the person who represents me. Because, by the way, in that district, it's 39, I believe. Does that sound about right?
Yes, it is. That's the old Saqib Ali district. 39.
He got the most votes in the last election. So if you all, I'll say you all in Montgomery, want to keep electing people like that, go ahead. Because it only proves that the people on the right and even people on the left are moderates compared to some of these people that we've elected. So.
Hey, Jason, based on what Dwight was saying, which I agree with, because this is one of the things that we have, Dwight, I know Dwight, we've been fighting in Montgomery County in terms of that we fill as many of the slots as we can to run a candidate. Statewide, are there other counties that's that same challenge of trying to find enough candidates to fill? It's good to have opposition. You can't just give the seat away to the Democrats, right?
Absolutely, Don. I mean, there are counties in this state. I think Calvert County might be one of them, and I don't. My family's from Calvert County, and I understand it a little bit, but there are Democrats that run unopposed in Calvert County, which is
really Calvert County.
At this point, is a deep red county. I mean, back in the day, it used to be blue, but these aren't your 2021 Democrats, Delegate Osvero Democrats. I mean, those are seats that we should contest. I mean, and they're usually small things like judge of the orphans court or something like that, but still, I'd rather see a Republican in there than a Democrat.
I agree. And in actually counties like Calvert County, there shouldn't be a single Democrat there. We should be wiping them out on every line.
There's counties on the Eastern Shore just like that too. I don't know. I think maybe Caroline might be one of them, and maybe Kent. Well, Kent tilts a little bit blue, but still, regardless, we have to put up a fight in every single county. I mean, whether it be Montgomery, whether it be Garrett, doesn't matter.
Yeah, on top of that too, the people who get elected at those levels, particularly, you're talking about, you're saying, some of the smaller races, but if you win some of these races, in essence, a lot of these people wind up kind of serving as well, and I'll use a baseball analogy, as a farm team for state senate. I mean, they get a little bit of experience politically, locally. They have a chance to maybe step up when an opportunity arises to fill in a slot. Maybe they can take down a Democrat, later on, and give us some more heft in the state house, which we badly need.
Yeah. And Prince George's County, Baltimore City are in that same boat with Montgomery County. But I mean, we had some great candidates. Like Chris Palumbi would be a great candidate to run for delegate in Prince George. I think he was from Prince George's County, or was he from?
He's from Calvert, Southern.
Calvert, yeah. I mean, there's probably his district. He could probably win that seat if there's a Democrat there. I think there is actually. He's in the old Mike Miller seat. What's that?
I think you're thinking of St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point, Dwight. I mean, or Dom. The Democrats, I think, do that better than us. I mean, Reed. Now that Reed's been down there, I'm sure he's met some of the people. But if you ask a Democrat, what did they do before here? Well, they were on their county council, or they were, the town commissioner of some random town in Montgomery County. I mean, these people have government experience, and I think for us as Republicans, we kind of don't do this as much. We don't. A lot of people we have, and I think it's good, and it's good that we have different people who come from diverse backgrounds. But a lot of the people we have don't have that experience. They haven't run. They haven't run a previous race. They don't have really any government experience. So I don't.
Yeah, and Jason, and the problem is a lot of the Democrats are government employees, so they got a lot of free time. In Montgomery County, if you look, most of the neighborhood associations are all run by government employees or former government employees, and they have the free time. We, on the Republican side, we have real jobs. We can't take off in the middle of the day to go testify in Rockville about some zoning ordinance. But they can cripple a developer in Montgomery County by sending 5 people there to speak out against. There was a particular developer in Silver Spring. He bought a house that I wanted to buy to do exactly the same thing he did, but he got it. He outbid me on it. But what happened was the neighborhood association, every time he would go up for zoning, they would come up and he'd be denied his zoning. I mean, it took him almost 5 years for him to break ground on a house, which it should not have taken that long. I mean, I'm glad, looking at it this way, I'm actually glad he won. He won the bid on it, because having land sit there 5 years, not being able to demolish the old house that's there or build a new house. Yeah.
Dwight and Jason, great points. I have definitely seen the pros and cons of having government experience, but being down in Annapolis. My issue is that the vast majority of the left, the vast majority of Democrats, I think, govern from a stance that the government has the right answer. The government is one of the best ways to solve all problems. I apologize for the feedback, but the majority of the Republicans come from the aspect that a personal responsibility and that the private sector should solve most problems. And that's really, a divide that divides us between the right and the left, is that, I truly don't think the government should solve all of life's problems. I think people should be up to their own, individual priorities and individual freedoms to solve their own problems, and the government is there only to help.
All right, so Jeff has been really quiet here, so I want to open.
I know, it's weird.
I want to step back for a second here, just so I can give something for Jeff that I think he can comment on, which is one of our first topics, which really was the first 100 days of Joe Biden being in office. So, Jeff, I mean, from your perspective, how do you think? How have you done in his first 100 days?
Well, I'll be kind, because I think obviously, what's top of mind for a lot of people is
the nicest doctor of us all.
I'm sorry.
I said you're the nicest doctor. You've got the best bedside manner as a doctor.
Well, I try to play the middle as much as I can. It's like, obviously there's never been a perfect president, and I've had issues with Trump and I've had issues with Biden. I can commend the fact that Biden has come through with the COVID. Now, whether all that stuff was given to him or not, he did kind of shoot for a low ball number for the vaccinations, but we have exceeded that, and I think we're on track with that. The thing I mentioned, I think last week when we were on the show, was that I wish he had followed through more with the small business financial benefits and such. I mean, we had the Paycheck Protection Program, and I know that they're working through Congress to try to get something similar for small businesses. But, as far as I'm concerned, the small business is like the bread and butter of the economy. If the small business fail, that affects not just the owners and the workers, but it's all the employees and all the people that depend upon those services. So, yes, big business is you'll see those kind of companies have enough financial wherewithal to survive and weather a lot of the storms, and some of them even thrive, like Amazon, in these kind of situations. But it's the small businesses, it's the local restaurants, it's the local proprietors, the people that are really trying to look for guidance from the government, saying what's my responsibility, what's my civic duty here, and how are you going to help me stay alive. And not that this is a Maryland thing, but I've seen a lot of the devastation, like in New York City, where it seems like there hasn't been a lot of backing of the businesses there, and a lot of businesses have just kind of left. And I think Maryland is more stable than that environment. I think we've got a lot of good businesses and a lot of government-based jobs, which are good. So I think we got a stable base. But you look at more like even the rural communities. How do you help them in these situations? I wish he really would focus more on, again, like the smaller businesses and the people, and how to like reach out, and because it's his big thing when he was running for president, was that he wanted to support small business. He wanted to give businesses the ability to work during the pandemic, give them masks, give them financial incentives to go through this, and I've just not seen any of that materialize yet.
Well, here's one thing I do want to show everyone. This is M&M's, all right? I'm going to say by the end of the show, I'm setting a goal. I will have one M&M by the end of the show. Okay, that is the equivalent of Joe Biden's goals for the COVID vaccination. Let's just get a few things straight. If it weren't for President Trump, Joe Biden would have no vaccine to hand out to vaccinate people, and he's botched that effort. I mean, and if I were to give Joe Biden's first 100 days a grade, I would give him, and I'm being kind when I give him this grade, everyone, so don't attack me for this, but I'm giving him an F.
That's kind.
He gets an F, for, I mean,
F minus.
What's that? Oh, you're giving F, you're nicer than me, you're giving F minus?
No.
And,
I mean, the polls are showing in general that, I mean, Biden has good marks on the economy. He's getting good marks on COVID response, but he's doing poorly when it comes to the border, guns, dealing with China, things like that. I mean, he can't get out of the way on the whole border issue that is continuing to plague him. He's definitely using, Kamala Harris as kind of the person that I'm going to turn this over to you because it's too difficult for me. I can deflect to you And then she really hasn't been doing much. She's held a few
She
phone
says,
calls.
"Oh, I'm not doing
She
that,
hasn't
Joe.
visited the border, right?
No,
So,
no, she is not.
So she, I don't know what kind of leadership she's showing at all.
He's
So,
done a backtrack on his policy of the border, that's for sure.
so Jeff, what would be the letter grade you'd give his fraudulency?
I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not here to bash people. I think,
No,
given
I know.
a
Like I
lot
said, you got the best bedside manner of us doctors here.
So
Humor
yeah, so
light.
if you hear the media says that he was given nothing by the previous administration. I don't think that's quite fair. I mean, obviously there was a lot of infrastructure put in. Now, again, it's like having been head of the economy. Yes, there's so much you can do and so much that's so much that's on you and so much in the previous administration. So yes, I mean, if we can give Trump credit for the the initial vaccine rollout, I think that was the Project Warp Speed was great. Getting the pharmaceuticals on board to get this stuff was great. I think he kind of botched a little bit when he didn't order enough from Pfizer, and it seemed like the initial plans for distributing the vaccine were, let's say, at least over aggressive and over optimistic. I think when Biden first came in, he wanted the 100 million vaccines in the 100 days, and he's exceeded it. It was a lowball number, but he exceeded it. So I would say a C. I think he's done what he's been given. He's done well with. I think.
It's interesting you mentioned the media though, there, Jeff, too, because it's this like this also the media has been kind, to say the least, to Joe Biden. I think I expected definitely a honeymoon period there, though there was that little bit when they were seeing these pictures, there were these leaks that were coming out of these border facilities, and there was some pushback from the press, but it disappeared very, very quickly. Looks like we've got David Bond giving him an E+ here.
E+, right?
But but by and large, the media has really not done much of anything, when it comes to asking the tough questions and pressing the Biden administration on issues at all. They went through this little border thing, and now they've been pretty silent. They haven't continued to push that at all. They want to focus on other things where they think he's doing well. They're certainly not really analyzing the spending and how very little of this money is really going to go to what most of us consider to be infrastructure. He's just larding this up and just going full bore.
This sounds like era 2.0 on steroids. If you guys remember the American Recovery and Restoration Act under Barack Hussein Obamacus, where they found out, we really don't have any shovel-ready projects, and this is going to be that on steroids, frankly. Jason, letter grade for L fraudulency.
I'll give him an A. No, I'm kidding. That's an F.
You had some angry phone calls Monday, don't you?
I'll just repeat most of the comments that they made. I think I agree with pretty much all of them, except Jeff. Sorry, Jeff.
It's okay.
And Don, what would you say, letter grade?
I'll give him a D at this point.
I think we should send a report card to the White House from the doctors. We should give him a report card, grade him on everything from foreign policy, and then when he fails, we'd say, "Have your mother sign this," or Joe Biden in this case, frankly.
I'm not even sure that Jim Carville would give Joe Biden much higher than a C, based on his reactions to things and how the Democrats are doing. And this whole thing too about the media. The media just that picture. I think everybody's seen the picture of Joe Biden, Joe and Jill. And they're walking, and then he leans over and he picks up that dandelion and he hands it to her. So it's just the dandelion with leaves, right, and everything like this. And everybody thinks, this is so wonderful that he's thoughtful enough to do this. I mean, it's a weed, okay? It's not even, I don't know, but they just fell over themselves. The way they do this. I mean, CNN had, they had a piece on their website.
Hold on. We've actually got
Jill Biden, about how she punches the clock, and how hard a worker she is, and all of this stuff, comparing her to Melania, we know what a classy lady Melania was, and they were really kind of mocking her for that. So
hey Don, we've got
just
here's the
bias that they just cannot get away from.
You know,
Hey Don,
I
let me
think
share the
after
video. We've got the
and
video right here.
flower without falling down.
Hold on 1 second. Here's the video, everyone. Now, you know what they would have said if President Trump did that? The president is too cheap to buy real flowers. He gives her a weed.
I don't know. Plus, I don't know. Maybe Jill Biden's dress was giving me kind of a headache. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
She's fine. It's fine. So I wasn't believing that he actually did that until I saw the footage. I had not seen the clip yet, but that was a lot worse than how you described it. I think they've okay. So ever since he fell going up the stairs, trust me, I've fallen before. It's whatever. Ever since he's fallen going up the stairs, I think he walks differently. Like I think he's walking super careful. Now, that's not to be derogatory. I actually took some training today that said you can be ageist, against someone's age if you're over 40. And I think, well, most of us are over 40 on this call.
Actually, except Jason. Yeah, everybody but Jason.
Terrible. So I'm not trying to be ageist, but like he just seems very awkward in that situation. I would back to the media though. I don't know who asked this question. Maybe you all do, but someone had asked him the question when he came out to all of a sudden unmandate masks outside. Like we all didn't realize that standing outside by yourself was okay. He wore a mask to the podium, and they got that one question: why do you wear a mask to the podium? And then he retorted with something like, "Oh, and I'm going to put it back on when I go away too." And I was like, I don't even understand what that means. So I don't know who asked him, but it was one of the best questions that I've heard lately.
But Reed, that was also the same interview where he said he better stop talking before he gets into trouble. When he was asked about the COVID crisis in India, and he goes, "We're going to send up some AstraZeneca vaccines," and I'm like, "Do we even have AstraZeneca vaccines in the U.S. to ship over there?"
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
If you see what Craig Yoakum said, about Biden, he says too focused on looking down and not looking up. Just got a point there.
Yes, he is.
It's perfect point, Craig. He is, I think, looking down, and that's emblematic of how he's, I think, leading from the front too. He's trying to cover his base versus trying to get us ahead. So we'll see where we're at. Again, this is only the second time I've brought it up, but the more left Biden and Kamala Harris can bring us, the better it is for us at the local level. Because the vast majority of people follow national level politics like we're talking about today. And I think people will revolt against it. And I don't mean the far left. I just mean moderates and Republicans will revolt and come out. So it's an optimistic time to be a Republican, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, and you brought this up a little bit earlier, but let's have a little bit wider discussion, Reed, about Tim Scott, Senator Scott, and the response. So he was chosen to give the Republican response to Biden's speech, and I think I think virtually all the Republicans thought he really did a great job. That is giving the response, whether or not you're a Republican or Democrat. It's never necessarily an easy thing to do. You'll always get criticized for it. You still remember Marco Rubio, and you have some of the glory days of Republicans doing things. But but he did a great job. But we had the situation where you mentioned the tweet there by the dog, but we also had just a lot of people out there calling him Uncle Tim. For which wound up being trending on Twitter for a lot of people, and it stayed up for hours and hours and hours. Twitter's trying to
block it,
and that did not violate the community standard.
No, they blocked it after a while.
They did eventually, but they said that was an algorithm that just when things are mentioned, it just if it gets there and it tries to bring it into your feed to show you what you might be interested in. But this is a problem of social media, right? I mean, we continue to see this. That plus the fact that Scott had already, I think, the Washington Post had tried to take him down before that, knowing that he was by talking about his background and, an ancestor of his who owned land. I mean, Scott has always talked about this, the slave past of his ancestors and stuff like this. And, and then the Post got pilloried for that, for those accusations, because it wasn't quite the way the Post presented it. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. I was going to say, sorry. It is amazing to me, and it always amazes me. It's 2021, and we actually have to continue to have a conversation that someone who is a different color than you can't have a different opinion than you, if that makes sense. So it's one of those things that I think Democrats might have been in front of the curve, right? All of the stuff through the 90s and 2000s, whatever, they might have been in front of the curve, but it's 2021, and someone on the left, especially in Maryland, is shocked that someone is on the right and might be the same color they are. I mean, why do we have to talk about this? It's so demeaning to people in general, and this is America. We have Delegate Brenda Cham is the only female Black Republican in the House of Delegates. And she's great. I bet you she's more conservative than I am. And guess what? Yeah. I don't necessarily care if she's black, white, or green, but she's just a great individual. She's actually a doctor also, a PhD, and she's just a great individual. So, why do we even have to have these conversations? And I can't remember. I mean, I'll just talk from my limited experience in the House here. The House Republicans don't go out of our way to say someone is a bad person because of their race or their color, but it seems like the Democrats seem to do that.
Yeah, we say you're a bad person because your idiotic tax policies. We say you're a bad person because your bad foreign policies stance. And here's something that may shock you, Reed, because you may not have been. Were you living in Maryland in 2002?
No, I was in Louisiana. I was on active duty in the Air Force.
Yeah, the reason I say that, we had an African-American lieutenant governor who's now a Democrat. He was running with the great Bob Ehrlich. And the NAACP, I said it, the NAACP in Prince George's County, they had a poster of Michael Steele, now Democrat, poster in blackface. They had an event where they handed out packs of Oreos to throw at Michael Steele. This is the NAACP in Prince George's County.
20 years ago.
Yes. But was there an article in the Washington Post about it? No.
That makes me sick. I mean, why do we have to continue to talk about this? I mean, when are we going to stop talking about it?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm okay with talking about it, but why do we have to talk about the instances of this? It's so disappointing, just in Maryland and the United States in general.
And the fact that
to let people who have brown skin in the Democrat Party, if they speak out or speak their mind, that they can't it's trying to scare them into staying on their side. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can't.
I tell you, I had this happen to me this past election cycle. I had a Trump shirt on, and some Democrat goes, "Did you know you're not white? You shouldn't be voting for Trump because you're not white." And I'm like, I go, you know how offensive that is, and I had to kind of school them on ethnicity and difference between ethnicity and race and so on. But these people, the only bigots I've ever met have always been liberal Democrats, frankly.
And I would say, and maybe this is our most centrist doctor on the call tonight, there are bad people on all sides, right? Just like there's good people on both sides. I've met some terrible Republicans and some terrible Democrats. I would, do your best. Two wrongs don't make a right. All of the things you learned in kindergarten and from your parents, if you see racism, call it out. Doesn't matter if it's a right or a left thing. But I have the feeling that the Democrats in the House in Maryland, the Democrats in the Senate in Maryland, won't say anything about this most recent thing, which is no, it's terrible. And thank God the Republicans are at least bringing it up, and that probably won't get coverage.
And I'll tell you this, Reed, a past Republican governor, he ran as a reformer. He was one of the reformer governors, Governor Spiro Agnew. In a speech he made, he did mention
how many minutes into the show before?
Gosh, we almost got through the show.
25 minutes. But no, seriously, Governor Agnew told a bunch of Democrats, saying, "Look, I've called out the reprobates in my party. Why can't you do the same?" And the Democrats' response were, "Well, they're Democrats." I mean, Governor Agnew, you know.
Actually, thank you for saying that. Go ahead, Jason.
Montgomery County.
What's that?
Isn't he
What's
the
that?
last Republican governor candidate to win Montgomery County?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was the last Republican that won Montgomery County, Spiro Agnew.
But it is a good point, Dwight. I think it's Democrats are afraid to call out Democrats. This specific Democrat we're talking about, he actually made proposed an amendment on one of the police reform bills, and it was to get rid of all SROs in the state of Maryland, the school resource officers, right? It had come up in a couple of iterations throughout our legislative session. He made an amendment on one of the police reform bills, and out of the 141 members of the House, guess how many people voted for it?
All the Democrats?
Of all of the 141, guess how many?
All of them?
Four.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, and it only brings up the point that they didn't want to torpedo their bill that they were looking to do police reform, which I understand, and then B, you know, it's just not a popular decision, and the far left people are going to continue to pull far left and make these kind of bills and amendments. So that's my only hope, is that the Democrats, and there's no independents per se, but the Democrats in the House for what I'm working on are not as far left as some of the people in the fringe. But that's a hope. That's not necessarily proof or science.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've got, there's like you said, Reed, there's bad people everywhere, frankly, you know. And the difference is we call out our bad guys. They will never call out their bad guys. You know, I mean, what is it? They used to defend Jack Kevorkian, frankly, you know, Dr. Death, you know. They defended Senator Robert Byrd, the Grand Kleagle of the West Virginia KKK. You know, they defended their reprobates. I mean, Howie Heflin used to get a pass every time, and I think there was a time when Howie Heflin spoke at a Klan rally. And he was a senator from Alabama, and he got a pass from the Democrats.
Yeah, let me say something.
Waters is giving a pass all the time, Dwight.
Look what she said. She was inciting a riot before the Chauvin trial. You know, she was calling for insurrection, as the left would say.
I agree on that point. The one point I will say, and my wife gives me a lot of insights because she's not very partisan, is the fact that we can't judge what someone said 20 years ago on our morals and standards of today. And I only say that because, you know, our forefathers owned slaves. They knew it was wrong at that point, but it was more of a way of life. I don't think we should cancel them. We should continue to evolve as a country, as a society, to get better and better. But, you know, I don't think I have many things to be ashamed of in my personal past. But there's plenty of people doing great things today who might have done something poor in their past, and we shouldn't cancel everyone. And I think that that's where we go too far. You know, we should continue to evolve, but judge on today's standards what people are doing today. Maxine Waters is a great example, but today's standards what people are doing today, not 50 years ago. So.
Right, and that's what kind of makes this whole Biden administration push on like critical race theory just nuts, because it is. I mean, you're going to teach these kids and evaluate. We're going to evaluate things that happened centuries ago, et cetera, and all these kind of things. And that this makes no sense. You know, what you're saying here is that we need to evolve. You're exactly right. It's just every time I see. And when we're talking about this, and that, you want to do these things, whether or not it's part of the cancel culture or whatever, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, there was a different time, a different era, different standards. Even with Dwight's hero Spiro Agnew winning Montgomery County, Montgomery County of 1968 or whatever it was. When did he win? 66, I guess was.
No, yeah, 66.
66. So that was a very different Montgomery County than today's Montgomery
We were
County.
rural county back then. Actually, when
Right?
Jeff,
So we can't judge that, today versus then.
Yeah, I mean, Don, when you're a little bit older than me, but when Jeff and I were in high school, Montgomery County was still a rural county. You still had green farms. King Farm was actually a farm, not a bunch of condos and townhomes. That was actually farmland out there. Where CarMax used to be, it's gone from that. All used to be farmland out there in Shady Grove. It used to be a toll call to call Frederick.
We didn't county executive until what, 1969 or 70 or so?
72, and that was Jim Gleason, Republican.
Before that. But anyway, back.
So farmland in Howard County. I'm just saying, behind my house.
Yeah. Do you have chickens also?
I do not. The farm behind me does have cows, so it is a working grain farm with cows on it, which is awesome. That's exactly why we moved here, because it's very rural.
One thing I like about Howard County, at least the way it was several years ago, I'd heard, was just that, houses they actually were almost mandated to have a certain amount of acreage, And so you were pretty much guaranteed to have a decent slug of land there for homes. So I can drive through part of Howard County and just see these homes, with nice yards. If you're raising kids and stuff like that, or doing, it's nice. You got to maintain it, but it's nice. And sometimes the postage stamps, lawns that we get a lot out here in Montgomery County, where we're getting they're all clustered together.
They've done a decent job of development, in my opinion. Obviously, there's around the fringes we can work on, but I think the statistic is something less than 5% is developable, if that's a term, in Howard County at this point, because everything's kind of maxed out. It's either farmland, ag prev, or developed at this point. So Howard County is getting to that point where it's a little maxed, but I am blessed to live on an acre. I wish I had 20 acres, but we have an acre here, which is just great for our daughter to run around the backyard.
If you had 20 acres, you need some farm hands. You need to have some farm hands.
If I only made enough money to have a working farm, I think my wife and I would love that. But, farms are expensive.
They are, and there's nothing wrong with the farm life, as Zaja and Eddie Albert used to tell us.
I do want to. I want to ask everybody about. We've talked a little bit about Trump here and there. He's brought his name up here and there, but he's put a lot of effort and energy into Arizona because of this audit that they've been doing of the election. It's not going to change the results and everything like this. I'm not really sure what the Republicans think they're going to get out of this at this point in time, but I guess it keeps Trump engaged.
Well, I think it'd be similar to probably the satisfaction your dad got when Bernie Goldberg had his book called Vindications come out, which basically vindicated everything that your dad and other folks have said about media biases. If we can prove that there was fraud in Arizona, we know there was proof in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And that's the end game here. It's not going to change an election, but it'll prove that we were right. And the Democrats were lying to you.
So what if it comes out and they find that basically everything was the margin, it was pretty much on target?
Well, it's nice to know that we got to the bottom of it and got to the facts. Frankly, every vote must be counted. Isn't that what Al Gore used to say? Every vote has to be counted.
Every count. Well, I'll go, center right on this issue too. I don't necessarily have any issue with relitigating, recounting votes anyway, right? I don't believe that it will overturn the election or change anything. But what I do believe, which was what Dwight was getting after, is that if we can make our electoral process more fair, count every valid vote in the future, if we can learn from something in Arizona or any state, so I'm all for that, if that makes sense. So we should, there's problems with every system in the world, right? So the system of voting, our electoral system does have, and I don't want to say fraud, but problems around the margin. So if we can continually make that better, I'm all for that learning. and the problem though is it gets very political, right? So it's Trump getting involved, trying to overturn it, driving up his base, which kind of convolutes the PhD educational, not to say Dr. Politics, but the educational experience that we're going through. So I think Jeff wants to talk on this one.
Go for it, Jeff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, voting rights that's kind of the one of the hot topics. So, it's again taking kind of the median view. You got one side where obviously I want there to be as much transparency and as much equality in voting as possible, and I want to be provided to everyone. But obviously, you want to make sure that there are balances to ensure that only the people that are allowed to vote and should vote are voting. So I don't want to be to the point where it's like so unencumbered that you just show up and say, "Hey, my name's Bob," and they find a Bob on the list and say, "Okay, go ahead and vote." As far as having, and this is contentious, but having a driver's license to show, I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. There's been studies and it seems both ways whether that's really disenfranchises certain classes of people or
But
not.
Jeff,
What I'm going to say though is that there should be some registration that you can show, whether it's an ID or the fact that you've got a utility bill that shows you live at a certain place or whatever. Like one person, one vote. If for some reason that says that, hey, it shows you already voted here, then at that point you can raise your hand and say, okay, well, we need to figure out what's going on here because obviously something happened there. So it's hard to find the exact median road. And again, my thing too is that I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, is that when I was working in Flint, Michigan, I was kind of a up and comer. Didn't have a lot of money. I was working retail. It was hard for me to get out to vote. I mean, it really was. My employer didn't give me time to say, here, take a couple hours to vote. So I'm sensitive to people that are working and can't vote. Now, that being said, there should be limits on voting hours so that it doesn't just go crazy. But I think there's a middle ground where you can extend hours, you can give people that want to vote the opportunity to vote without again having weeks and weeks of just open elections. So I think there is a compromise that can be made in that.
So I think you're 100% correct. The problem is, in my opinion, that we all, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, agree that one vote, one person. It's how to get there, right? And
Right.
you talk about voting hours. Maryland does a ton of absentee, early voting, all that kind of stuff. So I would be shocked if a single person in Maryland wasn't afforded the opportunity, just because we have no reason. You don't have to provide a reason to do an absentee vote. So you can do it whenever, right? So if you're busy or whatever it is. What frustrated me this year was the House Democrats brought up a bill about voting rights, and they wanted to provide incarcerated individuals a drop box in prisons, right? And there are certain people, if they're, which is great, right? So people before they're convicted can still vote, so plenty of people. My question is, can't they do that via absentee? Can't we provide them absentee ballots? If you're eligible to vote. That's not a problem. The problem was that they were suggesting to put drop boxes in prisons and not senior citizen homes, not hospitals, not anywhere else, but in prison. And we debated and debated, and it finally got struck. That aspect got struck. But my issue is, yes, let's get to every single person who is eligible to vote and wants to vote can vote. But let's not franchise and disenfranchise certain individuals because we think they're going to vote our way. This goes back to gerrymandering and the like. I will take a fair fight every day of the week. I don't want to disenfranchise anyone. I don't want to franchise anyone. If that's a term, right? So let's just have a fair fight. It's not a fight, right? We're all Americans, right? So we're not fighting each other. We're adversaries, maybe in the political sphere. I'm not anti-Democrat or anti-independent. Let's get everyone to come out and vote, and the best ideas should win.
No, I like that. And the fact that you mentioned about the looking for certain population centers and saying, okay, we're gonna help them. And again, I understand it may be out of let's say the kindness of the heart because they figure that these people have issues. But to your point, nursing homes, those kind of centers. These people can't get out. Even if they wanted to, they can't get out and vote, and maybe they don't understand the process of like what it takes to register to vote, to absentee ballot. Maybe they need to have people train them to understand, hey, this is how it works, and that's a great idea, because again, those are the kind of things that we want to have everyone participate. And we see, I think this last election we saw higher voting numbers than usual, but it's just like, it's still, I think, what was it like? Did it even cross 60%? It was like, it still was not like a majority of Americans that voting. I mean, it was more than 50%, but it was not like it was 2/3 majority of Americans voted, which still signifies that there is some we need to make more steps to make it more available to people.
And I'll say this will be the third time. So some of these local elections are won by like 10 votes or 1 vote, right? So yes, national politics and president, that's great. But just if anyone's watching, yes, your single individual vote counts, especially at the local level, because some of these elections are truly determined by 1 or 3 or 100 votes. So get out and vote.
All right, Dwight, we're at 8:01. Wrap it up.
Yes, we are at final thoughts, and let's start with final thoughts. Let's start with Jeff. Final thoughts.
So, my final thought, and this, I don't know if you guys follow the news or not. This is kind of interesting. So, in the spirit of the Shamrock Shake, you guys probably heard the whole meme about McDonald's shake machines always being broken. I did there's some stories on YouTube and some people I follow that kind of broke this into a little bit. So without getting into like the whole conspiracy theories and stuff, it's interesting to know that there's a lot of potential like cronyism that still occurs between companies that try to basically manipulate the market to that, you have to use broken technology. We've and this kind of goes even back to the voting machines, Dominion and other people. It's like we need more choices. We need to have people that have choices. And apparently, McDonald's franchisees can't choose the shake machines. They have to use this one particular shake machine that's like between Taylor and McDonald's. It's like this, it's a requirement. You do not have a choice.
That's the Ray Kroc way.
It has issues, and nobody knows how to fix it because the errors are like more cryptic than the blue screens of death you get in Windows. So they keep breaking down and nobody knows how to fix it. So it's just interesting that, whether or not you believe in like the right to repair movement or not, having opportunity, having competition, both in government and in private business, I think helps the better ideas come out forward. And that's why I think as a Republican, I'm to your point, it's like, I don't want the government to solve all the issues. I want them to give people the ability to solve the issues, give them the ability to make the choices, to give them more than one choice, so that they don't feel like they're locked into one choice. So that's my final thought.
Delegate Novotny, final thoughts. Also, please do tell us how our many viewers can support your re-election campaign.
Well, I appreciate all the doctors tonight and Dwight for inviting me on. readnovotny.com, readnovotny.com. I'll say it 3 times. But it is true. We are the super minority in the House and in the Senate. And I say this as an American, really. I don't think either side should be have so much power, right? If I was living in Texas or Oklahoma, I would say the same thing. And I just, I really truly think that if we have, I don't want 50-50, but if we have some type of balance and checks and balances on the way our legislature goes, I think it's better for everyone, right? So as a Republican, get us a couple more people in the House, a couple more people in the Senate. And I think that will be better for all Marylanders, just because it will allow, this is my one takeaway from being in the House this year, did not matter how great and cogent an argument we would make against or for some type of bill, the Democrats would just roll us. And that was just numbers. So it's not necessarily depressing, but it is a fact of life here. So if you want centrist government, which I think most people do, center right, center left, I'm good with either, really. If you don't want far right or far left, in our state, you got to elect a few more Republicans down to the state house to get us going. And I appreciate everyone having me on. And then I'm coming out to Montgomery County. When?
Next Thursday, you're coming
to
the Montgomery County Republican Club at Mama Lucia's in Falls Grove.
It's on my calendar, so that means I'll show up. I do everything that's on my calendar.
Awesome.
So, but I appreciate everyone having me on tonight.
Yeah, Jason, final thoughts.
My final thought. I just wanted to say farewell to the show and to everything political, because if you guys saw the news, the $500 million lottery ticket in Western Maryland has gone unclaimed. I actually won the lottery. Talking about.
You can donate $6,000 to my campaign. There you go.
And I will start a super PAC that's called Elect Novotny with that money. No,
you're just putting it all into Dogecoin.
That was the news back in January. I was talking up that lottery ticket, and the guy in Maryland won it, and he still hasn't claimed it. So I'm shaking my head at him or her, whoever it is.
It is somebody in Western Maryland, right?
Yeah, I forget what the name of the town is. It was some little town that's that's kind of not doing so great.
Just think what an economic boost to that county, the town he'd get just from him spending his money going out to eat.
Think about the economic boost they could do if they took that money, used it to run for county commissioner, built up the town.
Mm-hmm. I like that. As a Republican, not as a Democrat, though.
Exactly.
Before I get to the next final thoughts, I just forgot something. This is something one of your colleagues, Reed, has been saying on the floor. Let's just play it and watch.
Madam Speaker, I rise as the mother of a Baltimore City public school student to tell my colleagues that the Baltimore City public school system is not failing. It is every day teachers show up in our Baltimore City public schools and they do absolutely everything that they could to help our children.
How about that?
Can I respond? Because I could not respond when she actually said it.
Yes,
I was there when she said that.
Yes. How'd you stop yourself from laughing while she was talking, by the way?
Oh, no, you could probably hear me in the background. I was in the audience or in the balcony. So I have no doubt that there's dedicated teachers in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. Great on them. I think the system writ large is broken. My other famous quote or infamous quote from that same delegate is that planting trees will stop crime. I don't know if you saw that one or not, but we passed a bill to plant like 500 million trees or whatever the number was, I forget, to plant all these trees around Maryland. And she got up and quoted an MIT study or a Harvard study that said places with more trees have less crime. Could be true, got it, but she voted for everything to defund the police and make the police less effective in Maryland. But she voted for that and then stood up and said, trees stop crime. So I think she's running for something else. I'm not sure. You guys might tell me she's running for something else. And most likely she'll win. And she is very nice person. So I don't want to say that. There's a lot of people that I'm friends with, right? She's a very nice person. I just disagree with her policy. And it doesn't have to be personal. That's me.
So, and I personally think, I hope that's who Barry Glassman has to run against, Terry Lehrman, who thinks there's nothing wrong with Baltimore County schools, Baltimore City schools. Don Irvine, final thoughts.
Yeah, so what I had on the list tonight was just the Washington Post fact checker has thrown in the towel on the Biden presidential lies database that they had only been running for 100 days. They were going to basically stopping it after 100 days, even though they had it running during the entire Trump term. And basically, I'm feeling that that Biden, because he was partly things have gone kind of slow. They haven't been able to build that database, partly because Biden doesn't get a chance to actually talk to the press without controlled. So, they're purposely obviously trying to limit his gaffes and his misstatements and everything like that. But they decided to cut that down. And the interesting thing in the explanation for this too was just that the Kesslers talked about how much time manpower was devoted to having to track everything been saying. And it's just like my thought about this initially was just like, well, if Biden is not providing with a lot of stuff, then how hard is it to keep up the database? I mean, why don't you just go ahead and keep the database? Well, Trump has done you a favor in the sense that he's not around anymore, so you don't have to worry about the database. You don't have to spend all those man hours doing it. You'll just get an occasional thing, but why not keep up the database? But this is, once again, just the inherent bias of the Washington Post. They claim that they're going to continue to rigorously fact check Biden, going forward, but it just seems that they thought, well, Biden is not going to generate the kind of level of interest and things like that Trump did, so we're just going to do this, and we need to give the poor guy a pass. So shame again on the Washington Post.
I mean, could we expect anything less from the Washington Post, the home of Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, agents of the Soviet Empire that brought down an anti-communist president?
Yeah, one more thing, just because I have to throw these things in every time we have. I'm hoping that Marcus will someday actually pay attention to this, which was just that when Tesla announced their earnings, they actually made more off their Bitcoin investment than they did by selling their cars.
Well, I mean, their cars
now.
And their cars are going to be subpar compared to the Hummer EV, which I put a deposit down for.
Yeah. Okay. So I want, when you get your EV Hummer, I want you and Marcus to do some kind of race. Do something.
We could try towing something. How's that? Well,
I am the only Republican in the House of Delegates with a Tesla, so just throwing it out there.
Do you carbon shame the Democrats, like when you drive by them when they're getting, like when
well, a lot of them drive Priuses, and there's a few Teslas on their side.
Eric Lukey has a Honda 4Runner, not a Honda, a Toyota 4Runner.
It's a personal choice. I don't shame anyone for what they do.
Exactly. That's what makes us better than the Democrats.
Ridiculous.
My final thoughts are, I got a couple of thoughts. One, everyone, Orioles magic, believe it. They've won 11 games this year, and they've had the Yankees number this season. Orioles magic. Orioles magic. Believe it. They're tied for third place. And so they're only 4.5 games out of first place. So, hey,
that will change.
Yes, it will. But until then, it's still good. There aren't going to be too many other opportunities for this. It's kind of like with Redskins fans. When the Redskins win a game, you don't have too many other times, to get excited, But and my other final thoughts. What's that?
No, Dwight, I just want to say one thing about Orioles. So I had I had tweeted some things to Buster Olney for his Baseball Tonight podcast, and they actually read it on the air a couple of weeks ago. And that was who was knowing that the producer of the show is an Orioles fan. And I asked him, I said, so who's going to win more games this year, the Orioles or the Nationals? And he says, there's no way the Orioles will win more games than the Nationals. But then he says, but if the Orioles do win more games than the Nationals, he's going to treat me to a free dinner.
That's good.
And so now I'm going to have to root for the Orioles just so I can get a free dinner from Buster Olney at ESPN. And
also, here's the other thing is our thoughts and prayers go out to Bryce Harper, who got hit in the ball last night at a Phillies game.
Hit in the face.
In the face. Oh, yeah. In the face. It's on his head,
About a 97 mile per hour fastball.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers go out to Bryce Harper. Speedy recovery. And my other final thoughts, if you're not doing anything tomorrow, there's something you can go out to Carroll County. There's a mayor's race right there, Jason.
Oh yeah.
And
if you missed the article in the Baltimore Democrat running for mayor is real upset that her opponent has come out and said, "Well, yeah, I am a Republican," and in fact, the Republican
audacity of the man
and the state party is helping me. So how awful we should take the politics out of politics and just.
And what time do the festivities start tomorrow?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. over at Keller Williams, right?
All of the information can be found on the Maryland GOP Facebook page.
And then if you're bored next Saturday, there's something else going on from 5 to 7, I think. Is it in the best part of your county? Is it the best part of Anne Arundel County?
Two Saturdays from now, Dwight.
Oh, 2 Saturdays. Okay.
May 15th. There is a fundraiser for the Anne Arundel County Republican Central Committee. All of the donations will go directly towards beating Stuart Pittman in 2022.
And can you still buy tickets for this?
Absolutely. We have 75 seats still available, and we'll take
Are sponsorships still available?
Absolutely.
Is this an outdoor event?
And as Don asked on Facebook the other day, he asked if masks were going to be required, and since it's going to be an outdoor event, I don't think we need masks outside anymore. That restriction is
yes, we'll all be there. I know. And how much are the tickets again?
$50.
Only $50? You mean to tell me for $50 I can go to a garden party? Reed, do you believe that for $50? A garden party?
I'll quote a member of our committee, former member of the House of Delegates, Mike Burns, said in 2021, if you don't have $50 to go to a fundraiser, you shouldn't be going to fundraisers. You shouldn't be going anywhere.
You should get a job.
So yes, Dwight, and this is the best of late night television commercials that Dwight has grown up on.
Those prices are so insane.
So you sound like Crazy Eddie.
Yeah, he had some legal troubles, I believe.
Yeah, he did.
So, yeah. But I mean, in New York City, that was like the best place to buy a television, stereo, a Walkman, even. These are all technologies before your time, Jason. We listened to music on something called a stereo, and we played CDs. But that's it for my final thoughts. And don't forget, everyone, Anne Arundel County's Republican Party's garden party at what's the nursery's name again? It's a great nursery too.
It's at Homestead Gardens.
Yeah, that's where I go to buy my buy the stuff for my gardener to put out.
Quick drive. It's a quick drive. All you got to do is take 50 down like you're heading towards Annapolis, but get off 2 exits earlier, and it's right there.
So does that put it in? Is it in the best part of the county? Is that South County, or is that the?
Yeah, it's borderline.
So it's not as nice as your part of the county.
No, absolutely not.
Anyways, thank you, everyone. See everyone next week, and tune in to Direct Line next Wednesday. We have Myron Ebel from Competitive Enterprises. He is going to be talking about all things of the radical left's environmental agenda. Thank you, everyone. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.